Now let's take a short break to talk about a perfect pairing of McDonald's favorites. You know that tender, juicy, crispy chicken sandwich you love so much? It's even better when paired with a frozen drink. I mean, think about it. It's hot, you're hungry, and you need the perfect pair to feel better. McDonald's crispy chicken sandwich with a frozen Fanta Blue Raspberry, frozen Coca-Cola, or frozen Fanta Wild Cherry is exactly what you need. Try them today, only at participating McDonald's.
Live life at your pace. Click the banner or go to visitwilliamsburg.com to discover how. Because here in Williamsburg, life moves at one pace, yours. Visit a live archaeological dig site on the very grounds where America began, or walk the fields where our country was won. Live like a colonial by day or track 18th century ghosts by night. For all the history to be found here, there's plenty more to make for yourself. It's all waiting for you in Williamsburg. Book your trip today and live life at your pace.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. We are going all the way back to season number 1 today. Both my partner in crime here and I learned a few things about Brady background and where things came from and how they happen, because sometimes things happen in scenes that we're not in because we're in the studio school. And if we miss the episode, we have to go back and look for it too. So anyway, welcome again. I'm Barry Williams.
And I'm Christopher Knight.
And we are
the real Brady Bros.
All right, this was fun to go back to. This is very early in the first season.
Now, we don't. By the way, we don't have to have just been in school to have missed something in another scene. It could have been scenes that we were in and logic that came out of our very own mouths. I mean, literally things that we had said in scenes. Matter of fact, there's going to be one I'm going to point out in this episode from you, Barry, that I think we completely forgot about. That came out of Greg's mouth. That now I hang on to much more heavily than I did back in the day, because it actually has some meaning moving forward. And it's just stuff that we didn't think that we'd have to reflect upon ever again. And that's maybe why, though I'd seen the show, it was 50 some odd years ago, I don't remember a lot of what went down in this show.
That's so much a big part of what's fun about working together on this and going back and having our listeners join in on these kind of stories, or if you might call them inside stories, because even though we share the same experiences, we experience them in different ways. Chris, being the youngster that he is, 4 years younger than I, some things meant one thing to him and meant something very different to me. So we're kind of unwinding and resolving and learning about what we did as kids ourselves. So welcome to the ride. This episode this week is called To Move or Not to Move, in which early on the Brady kids think that this house is too small. Can't imagine why. 3 girls in one room, 3 boys in one room, 1 bathroom to share. This house was not designed for all 6 of us. Give us the stats on it, Chris. It was season 1.
To Move or Not to Move, season 1, first aired March 6th, 1970. It was a 23rd episode of season 1, 23rd episode in total. Written by Paul West, directed by Oscar Rudolph, created and produced by Sherwood Schwartz.
Right.
Yeah, so this is the end of the first season.
End of the first
initially
season, yes.
we went to series for 13 episodes, picked up for 13. And the second half of the year, normally around 10, although in this particular case, it looks like it was, we did 24 episodes in season 1. One of those was the pilot. So I guess our second pickup would have been 12. In any case, this is the 23rd episode. Actually, production number is number 18. So it was, in the script coming out of the writing process as the 18th episode prepared for production. For some reason, they delayed it to the 23rd episode in its airing. So it was part of that second group of the first year. And the first year, as I pointed out in the past, is more stereotypical of the family. The writing is more broad stroke about issues and taking the characters more or less, again, stereotypically, like the oldest brother, the youngest girl. And in this particular case, you could see this coming. a house with a shared bathroom. Definitely there's going to be an episode or episodes about how this works. I have learned in my life, because it seems it's necessary for everyone with a large family to share with us, that they had one bathroom too. Whenever somebody who was a fan of the Brady Bunch remembers growing up, in a large family and sharing a bathroom, that it actually can work. They're an example of that, because I'm not sure that we personally placed a whole lot of thought into that. I look at it now as, how could it possibly work from the point of view of an adult? Us. And even growing up, there was 4 in my family, and we shared one bathroom. So it wasn't totally impossible, but actually recognize as well, why did this family that looked upper middle class, a family of means, have only 2 bedrooms for 6 kids and one bathroom? And the real reason is because there's really no show without that.
Well, that's true. That's convenient, but also as a part of the history of the Bradys, when Mike Brady designed the house, it wasn't designed for. Well, now this is interesting. I don't know.
Right. This is what I was going to ask you in this show. Now watching it,
if Mike's first wife, was in this house ever, he designed this house. Was she still alive when it was created?
Well, it must have been, because Bobby says he somewhere in the middle of the show admits that it's the only house he's ever lived in. And Peters agrees. And obviously Greg is part of that as well. So
there you go.
Must have been there for some time.
So that means that Carol
not only that,
is sharing the same bed with Mike that Mike's deceased wife.
Right. Now, these are some of the onion skin you start pulling back, and you realize, if I would have given that more thought back then, that's a level of depth that one could have used. And it's only being really kind of uncovered in this moment, that question, because it's a valid one. But, and it was one that when watching this show, I didn't even think of, but I did think of this one. So this is a house that was built for us. We were born into it, meaning with the 2 bedrooms, who was in the girls' room?
You and Bobby.
Was it you?
No, it was you and Bobby.
Me and Bobby.
It was you and Bobby. I have my own room, for sure. That's why I get the attic at the end.
Well, no, that makes sense. But which of the 2 rooms was yours?
Yeah.
You could have had the girls' room, right?
Well, and not with that wallpaper.
You had to move out of it.
No way.
There wouldn't have been wallpaper like that. I'm thinking
out on
you're
that.
right, though. I see. There's no logic that you can trust comes from Barry. So the reason is I think the girls' room was bigger. So most probably, yes, but then we would have then had to move into your room. That gives a little more heft to, building that kind of history into your character.
This was why I was a little edgy with you guys. I got it. That's what it was. I felt that you were infringing upon my private space, and you were.
There was one other thing that was said in this show that I never took stock of. It comes from you. It comes from Greg right at the front end about the girls always locking the bathroom. We'll go back and start the show and tease it apart. But at one point you say that the girls keep their clothes in our closet.
And that was in our bedroom closet?
This episode, in part of the repartee and the complaining about the bathroom and being locked out of it, and the girl, and Marsha's response to that is girls have more clothes.
Well, I thought, that's
a line thrown in, but if the line is going to be thrown in, it could be used as subtext, and it was never really owned after that. But that's an interesting thought.
I thought she was referring to leaving her clothes in the bathroom. Not into our closet.
But,
all right, I'll look. Well, listen, I promise you, I never wore any of their dresses.
I'm not sure I'm gonna believe your promise. I know you too well. Only finding a pair of heels that fits.
Okay, so what happens here is another thing. It's not just shared space that's a little crowded, but, people do stuff like, I played the guitar, and apparently Marsha liked to play her music really, really loudly. And so we open up with me as very determined, marching down the hall to the girls' bedroom door, where I begin to not knock, but pound on the door. Come on, Marsha, Marsha. And of course, she can't hear me because she's playing her music too loudly. So I pound some more. And then what do I do? What any teenage boy would do. He barges in anyway, right into the girls' room, and get my first look at Marcia in her skivvies.
Right. Was that a slip, I guess, is what she's changing. She's just changing her clothes and then covers up and squeals.
My gosh, she's got a scream, doesn't she?
And she has
On
a scream.
and on.
It's such a high pitch, your ears bleed.
So, of course, a shouting match ensues where Carol comes in and she wants to break it up. What's going on? We get the music down and then the complaints come out. And the complaint is not only is she playing her music too loud, but the girls, according to Greg, always lock the boys' side of the bathroom to keep us out so we can't use it. So we have to go through the girls' room to get into the bathroom. And of course, they accuse us of the same thing. Well, what a dilemma. What a dilemma. What are we to do? There's only one conclusion.
Move.
We need a bigger house. We got to move.
Well, frankly, how did you feel about this first scene? It struck me as really believable and
Yes,
played.
I did.
Believable.
It was.
Not played, will later, in the later years, play a much more supportive version of Brady. But in these first episodes, this
We go at it.
stereotypical kind of relationship that the writers are writing to is less Brady-esque and more real.
It's more confrontative.
I thought the between you and Maureen, it was wonderful because it was real. It was real. You barge in, and then she accuses you of not knocking, which is a complete lie, although she doesn't know that she's really lying. She's misinformed because she couldn't hear you. But the look on your face after being accused, because you've just walked in on your sister changing, and it was a lot more innocent than that because she's fully clothed even though she's changing. But still, there's the look on your face of how horrified you are at her accusing you of just barging in like that. I thought it really played well.
Yeah, that was CMA.
And the logic to it was right there, that we were locked out of the bathroom.
Right, exactly. But I love that we get right to the plot point so early on. And the plot point is, well, there's obviously nothing we can do. Everyone has suddenly discovered that there's too many people in each of the bedrooms. We're sharing one bathroom. It doesn't work. Everybody's upset about it. Most everybody goes along with it, except Mike Brady. Because Carol says, we've got the 2 bedrooms and 3 people in each and only one bathroom, which, of course, as everybody knows by now, has no porcelain toilet because the rules of standards and practices
of any,
at that time,
of any material.
You just couldn't have a toilet. So we always kid about the Brady kids being immaculate and why we did not need a porcelain bowl to throw up in or poopsie doopsie or any of that piddly widdly. So
everything concluded for us personally as it did in every episode perfectly.
So Mike is saying, we've looked at homes, it's going to be too expensive. It lists all the reasons why not. And Carol kind of remains steadfast about that and think this is where Mike says, he says that they had the house before. He didn't plan to, it wasn't planned to have.
I've got it here. So this is a rare moment as well, because mostly when Carol and or Mike speak in the run of the series, they speak as we. And in this scene where Carol has just separated Greg and Marcia, and you recognize she's feeling sympathetic to them having to share a bathroom. She comes down and relays to Mike, they have a point, the kids. There's 6 of them, and they share one bathroom. They share 2 bedrooms. And Carol points out to Mike that he has added a wife and 3 kids, and he still has the same number of rooms.
Right.
Being this house.
She
didn't say we.
Too far ahead.
It was he. She was just claiming this is his. And 6 kids, 2 bedrooms. And Carol insists that Mike listen because at this point, a little cliché-ly and un-Brady-like, Mike is not really paying much attention to Carol. He's working on an andiron from the fireplace.
Which is infinitely more important.
Yeah, and I can listen to you and fix the andiron is essentially what he is saying. And clearly having a bigger house. Now, I always thought the Brady house was huge, outside of the fact that there's quite clearly it needs more rooms for
It
this
has a
many
lot
kids.
of volume.
Yes. So, but for me, houses I lived in didn't have any volume. Might have had a few rooms, but it didn't have much volume whatsoever. But then Mike, goes into explaining to Carol, and we learn through his expression that we've been through this before. And we can never agree. We've gone out even looking for houses and can never agree on one. And then there's the issue of affording a new house.
Right.
And he literally says, until they can agree on a house and be able to afford one, we just can't make the change. We absolutely can't.
Right.
Definitive. He's really definitive about that. Of course, then we cut to more argument.
He should have checked with Alice before he said that, because Alice has an idea or two here, because she knows of, the McIntyre house, of whom we've never heard from before or since, but the McIntyre house has been on the market for quite a while, and it's
the hill
for sale, and it's just up the hill.
House up on the hill.
Mm-hmm.
And we learned from Alice that her friend was the cook there and left the McIntyres.
Because it wasn't just a hill. It was a haunted hill. And it
wasn't a haunted hill, it was a haunted house.
Yes.
And of course, Carol is listening to this in the kitchen from Alice and doesn't buy into it.
It was the hang.
Of course, there's no such thing as ghosts. Yeah. And we are left with, if we were paying attention, the rest of the show. We just kind of projected there. I like what's going to happen.
We're doing all this talk about the house, and when Mike had it, et cetera, it does beg the question then, in our pilot episode, the first episode, when we're sitting around the kitchen and Mike is getting ready to marry Carol, and what house was that? Because it certainly wasn't the house that that everybody moved into. So we had to be in somebody else's house.
This is where I say that one of the weaknesses of our show was the logic. There wasn't any Bible invested in, kind of to help the writers understand the context of this family, where it comes from and where perhaps it's going, that would set, sort of the foundation for our history coming into this. They didn't care about any of that. Matter of fact, I think that having even that as an actor, you build it for yourself, that's subtext. And we've learned from past episodes that maybe subtext wasn't something that our producers encouraged the actors to build upon.
Well, this isn't something you would ever find Vince Gilligan guilty of, or Taylor Sheridan, that's for sure.
You build a lot more foundation into your program through sort of a created history. Anyway, so this history, we've ignored the fact that, in fact, we didn't have this house for practical reasons until it went to series. There wasn't going to be a budget for building an elaborate set, the likes of which was the Brady set. So we worked out of a different studio with couple of walls.
So then who the heck went out to Dilling Street in North Hollywood and took that picture of a house that didn't reflect at all the interior of this house that we moved into? Who took that picture and okayed it?
Well, yeah. Well, that was Sherwood. I understand that he actually found that house, that elevation, if you will, that the house that today is known as the Brady house, that we turned into the Brady house. But I mean, all they were really looking for is a house that had a driveway as you looked at the house on the left side, because our car drove into the backyard from the left side of the house. And that was enough of a cue to allow it to stand.
Well,
but I mean, do you remember the pilot? There wasn't a use of an establishing shot. There wasn't we have to go back and now watch the pilot. I don't believe there's an establishing shot. In this show, in the first season, you'll also note that when we came into the show from the get-go, there is no as we normally show the establishing shot and we come into the Brady house. It was the music from the record player. And in fact, every episode in the first season has something like that. There is no real... That music that we are now accustomed to coming into the Brady house with is not there in the first season.
I'm so glad I tuned into this show today, because I did not know that. You know what I do know?
I didn't either.
We should make notes and have Lloyd Schwartz, invite him and ask him to come on as a guest with us and clear some of these things up for us, because he certainly would know. He was very involved with just about everything Brady, and came in as our dialogue coach from the beginning. and then becoming ultimately a producer. So that is a question I would like to ask him about the house.
Since you brought it up, I've spoken to him, and he would be very happy to come on our show.
Oh, great.
Because, in fact, he has listened to our show and called me afterward to correct me on some of the things that were wrong.
Perfect. Yes, that would be Lloyd.
So I said, I want to just come in and straighten us out in real time.
Yeah.
So it'll be a fascinating show, but we'll have to do our homework. Have to go back and find out all these discontinuities that we have curiosities about, so that we can ask him straight up to the man who might know. So which house was that? What room did Greg live in? And did Carol ever really care that she was living in someone else's bedroom? Good questions. Anyway, where are we in the show at this point? Let's see. So
Alice has just said that about the McIntyres, but we haven't got to Jan yet, because Jan, the same problem recreates itself back up in the boys' bedroom, except this time Bobby and you are there, and I'm pounding on the door again, and let me in, and Jan's saying, go away, Greg, just go ahead. And this is
this time you threatened to actually break down the door.
Yeah, I was going to break down the door.
Reminded by Peter that Dad would kill you, and of course then you take the position we'll leave essentially more room in the house for you guys.
Yeah, if I'm dead. That was by the way, I was being facetious.
Yes, I know, but your younger brothers didn't understand what facetious meant.
Now, is this where you think Jan was telling me that, or I said that they're always keeping the girls are always keeping their clothes in our closet?
No, this is in the argument that you have with Marcia. You and Marcia at the front end of the show are arguing. She tells Mom that you just barged in, you didn't knock, and you said I did knock, but she couldn't hear me knocking because she has the record player so loud. Carol immediately recognizes the record player is too loud because she immediately comes in the room after the argument starts and you barge in and can't get attention of either of you because of the music. So she turns off the music. She's sensitive to the fact the music was loud. And then Marcia tells her that you just barged in. Carol wants to know why you did that. And you said, because she couldn't hear me. And then Carol wants to know, well, why are you coming in the girls' room?
Right.
Asks you why you're there. And she says, I want to get in the bathroom. And then she asks you, why are you trying to come into the bathroom, the girls' room? You say, because our door is locked and it happens all the time. They leave it locked. And that's where this argument goes back between the two of you. And one of the things that is said is that the girls use our closet, put their clothes in our closet. And then Marcia says, girls have more clothes.
Okay. That is definitely something I'm going to go back and check on, as that doesn't make any sense to me that there would be a room for anybody else. There wouldn't be room for our own clothes in that closet.
We had very small closet.
Yeah. And in nobody's imagination would the Brady boys be sharing their closet with the girls, our sisters' clothes. I don't see that. I don't see that happening. Because that would mean that they'd have to come into our bedroom and get their wardrobe, their clothes out.
It makes very little sense. And another bit of logic that is missed in this is there is a central door in some episodes to the bathroom from the hallway.
Sometimes
so it'd be another way to get
there
into the bathroom. But if
Right.
the girls are locking the boys out from their room, they're probably locking every door. But the way that it went down is literally these beats. Carol's asked Greg why he's trying to get into the bathroom with the girls' room. Greg angrily explains because the other door is locked. The girls, they always leave it locked from the inside, to which Marcia says to the boys, they do the same. Greg says the girls are always in the bathroom. Marcia defends herself, saying there are three of them. Greg reminding then Marcia, there's three of us as well. Then he says, the girls use the boys' closet. Out of nowhere, Marcia defends this by saying, girls have more clothes. You got to listen to it. It's like, yeah, I had to listen to it a couple times. That is what she says.
That's funny.
Girls have more clothes.
Funny.
Yeah. So, and that's when they come to the agreement that Greg says, we need a bigger house, and Marcia says one with another bathroom. And that cut is then Carol going downstairs to Mike to plead their case that they have a point.
Now let's take a short break to talk about a perfect pairing of McDonald's favorites. You know that tender, juicy, crispy chicken sandwich you love so much? It's even better when paired with a frozen drink. I mean, think about it. It's hot, you're hungry, and you need the perfect pair to feel better. McDonald's crispy chicken sandwich with a frozen Fanta Blue Raspberry, frozen Coca-Cola, or frozen Fanta Wild Cherry is exactly what you need. Try them today, only at participating McDonald's.
It's a well-known fact that good sleep leads to a happier life. Okay, maybe that's not a fact, but don't you just feel amazing after a great night's sleep? Like the first night back in your own bed after traveling. It's time to demand more first night back kind of sleep. Stop tossing and turning and talk with your doctor about how you can seize the night and day. And visit seizethenightanday.com to learn more.
Everyone's kind of assuming that all the Brady Bunch kids are on board with this idea too. And then we go down and we're having a little chat with Mike and Carol, and they're saying, we'll have a new home for the Brady Bunch.
Well, you're skipping.
I am skipping a lot.
There's two interesting intercut scenes where the boys are reminiscing about their time in the house. This is when we learn from Bobby that he hasn't lived anywhere else. At the same time, it's the girls in the girls' room talking about their limited time in the house, and they're going to miss the house. They're thinking who's going to live in the room. Marcia thinks it's going to be some nice girl. And then Cindy thinks, what if it's a mean old man? And then they're worried about who's going to be living in their room. And then they start thinking about not having the boys around, which is an interesting thing because they're moving into a house with the boys. But their whole point of view is of missing us, missing their brothers. But the boys, when they're reminiscing, don't think about the girls at all. We reminisce about the injuries that have occurred in this house.
I'm laughing about broken ribs.
Falling off the roof of the garage through Dad's new convertible top, breaking 3 ribs and the gear shift lever.
And the gear shift. That's not a joking matter, it doesn't sound to me. Especially that gear shifter.
The point is that these are the kind of stories I tell about old houses. I sort of remembered through the injuries. And this show is written by a man.
Right.
And clearly written from a male point of view, because the girls' issues are all revolving around us if they leave this house and how they'll miss us.
Right.
Any case, so it comes fast and furious that the kids are sort of like melancholy about the prospect of not having this house anymore. And when Dad then has the scene that you were just now going to
Mike doesn't help me. He's found a house that Carol and he had already looked at, but it's come up on the market, and it's a possibility. And he kind of explored some of the economics of it, and it seems to work. So now we come down, and he's trying to encourage us and get us excited about a new home for the Brady Bunch. Second time I actually heard him say that.
I don't think
Only
I've ever heard it before.
On the pilot, the whole bloomin' Brady Bunch.
Pilot,
yeah.
Whole bloomin' Brady Bunch. But he doesn't say the Brady Bunch. And he does in this scene. Mm-hmm. It is the only time I can remember, though I have proved my memory is faulty and we haven't recapped all the shows yet. So
it struck me too.
Again. But he does say, what do you say? New home for the Brady Bunch.
He should have sung it. And it goes on to explain and amplify that you're going to have, you just know how this is going to land on us, new friends, a new area, new experiences, and more rooms. So we're going to upset our entire living experience.
You're going to be closer to the park.
Mm.
Now, if you recall, we had a whole episode about, the family apparently has dedicated their life to cleaning the park. And what episode was that?
Yeah, right.
I mean, the park was like right around the corner. And I guess we're getting into a house now that's even closer to the park. That's a big issue. But at the end of the scene, when Dad is asking them for their approval on, what do you say, a new home for the Brady Bunch, everybody's cheering. It's not as though people, the characters are already backtracking in front of Mom and Dad. They're
not
excited.
Cheering. Yeah, we're not cheering.
No, and at the end of that scene, there's a cheer. There's a cheer. Everybody's on board. That scene is, you're right, though. It is after the boys had started to show some reticence to this idea.
Right.
And actually, the boys actually say, when Peter says he likes this house more, Greg points out to Peter, you haven't even seen the new house. Greg says, well, Dad's going to have it renovated. Bobby doesn't want to live in a renovated home. You accuse him of not knowing what renovated means. But we come to the conclusion, and this is another point written from a man's point of view. Our little scene is the three of us. The girls' little scene is happening at the same time in their room, but they're not aware of our conversation. And at our conversation, it concludes with you saying, well, then it's unanimous. We don't want to move. But the unanimity doesn't include the girls at all. But clearly going on next door is the same idea that they don't want to move as well because they're sad for the house. I mean, it's a touching little scene that the girls are going to miss us in a bigger house. Even the pounding on the door. They're actually locking the bathroom to get reactions out of us, apparently. It works in the context of a sitcom. But we conclude that the boys don't want to move. It's unanimous. Clearly, we've set a tone here. We've learned two things. We've learned that the house is going to be sold because Mike, who up front is intractable in the idea of moving, because it's been broached before. They can't afford anything, and they can't agree on anything. He is definitive on that. But the next time we see Mike, he has seen a house that they've seen before. I thought they couldn't agree on anything. And it was for sale. It's come on the market today, and he made an offer on it. Now, he did this all without even consulting Carol, and we just thought that it wasn't affordable to buy a house. Apparently, it's completely affordable. It just didn't make any sense to me that he would change his colors that quickly and find a house, that readily and do it without consulting with his wife.
Well, here's the deal. The kids get into their conniving conspiracy mode. And we want to put a stop to what's going on because clearly there's more to lose than there is to gain if we are now forced to move out of our house and we dedicate ourselves to changing the tune around there. And this is where all the fun begins because we can work quite successfully well together when we are aligned. And that is to haunt the Brady house.
Now, this is an interesting point, though. This haunting stuff was talked about by Carol and Alice. No kids overhearing any part of that. I don't know if there was an earlier part of the script where the kids were overhearing this haunting thing.
Well, we might know about the McIntyre house. There might be. It's been on the market for a long, long time, so we could have heard rumors, perhaps, or something like that.
Absolutely, because the next thing that happens
is we come.
Well,
out.
we don't know it's us. Not to begin with, it's not us plotting at this point. It's just that there was a scene about a haunted house, and we noticed that Alice is, pretty much a believer in the haunted thing and doesn't want to be anywhere near it. And the next thing that's happening after the kids agree that they don't want to move is there's noises in the house.
Oh, I see. You want to build the suspension that we don't know who's created these noises.
We don't.
The ghosts or the tiger is howling at the moon. Which
all of that is discovered in Act 2. The first act there is all of a sudden there's haunting going on around the Brady house. Alice believes that it's the McIntyre's ghost has come to the Brady house because there's more action there, more people to scare. But we wouldn't know that it's the kids yet. It's just creaks and groans as far as Dad is concerned.
Well, that to me, it's like 2 + 2. I mean, yeah, how else? I don't know how else we're going to have that going on if we haven't kind of set that up. And it's not the first time we've done this kind of thing.
Got a question for you.
Yes.
It's convenient in this episode that Mike is written to be out of the house all nights of this week, working late at the office.
Right.
Now, this is the first year. The legendary battles between Robert and Sherwood hadn't really begun yet, as far as I know. They probably were just getting to know one another, if you will. I think that it was probably really lucky that in this episode they didn't have Mike in the house, because Bob would have had a really hard time with it.
Well, at any rate, when we do get going here, we've got ghosts, we've got Tiger howling, and we've got references to Tiger, and we haven't seen Tiger in 20 episodes. Bobby and Cindy are scared. Alice slept like a rock, a frightened rock. Mike has an excuse. The house is settling. Then Alice opens up the oven. The light is blinking, and the night comes with noises. Cindy, who sounded like a knight in shining armor, fell down. I love that. It sounded like a knight in shining armor fell down. So, okay, kids are pretending anyway. They don't know how these things are happening. And Mike Brady is poo-pooing the whole thing. Carol gives Mike a call over at the office. I just mentioned that because they cut to Mike in his office, and he is working at the exact same draft table that he has in his den. It's the same size, it's the same shape, it's the same color, it's got the same top on it. It's just it has a piece of paneling behind it. So I just thought that wasn't. So it was probably shot in his den, and they just put up a 4x8 piece of wood behind him and said, "Okay, come on,
green screen.
you're at your office now." Dad's also found a realtor for our house, right? Mr. Grossman. And he's going to have him come over when? This very evening. It's just like how real estate works, you know. You put a house on the market, and you got your realtor the next day, and they're ready to show it.
Yeah, not because he's coming over that evening, because he's already got an interested party.
Yeah, there's that. This is where we learn, by the way, when Mr. Grossman gets to the house, because he's going to meet him before he actually shows it, that Mr. Grossman asked Mike, he says, "You mean you want to sell this house that you built, that Mike Brady built and bragged about all this time, this house that we're in?" And that's the first time that I'd actually recall ever hearing that or having that identified.
That it was, I always suspected that he built the house. Why wouldn't an architect actually design their own house when it looks clearly?
There are all kinds of architects, right? It could be commercial buildings, it could be high rises, it could be resorts, it could be anything. Single family dwellings is a whole specialty. So, but a lot of his designs did look like the Brady house. But anyway,
so he's the designer, the builder of the 1-bathroom, 2-bedroom house for even for 3 kids. You would think they'd put in a second bedroom. There was a moment when there's an agreement between Mike and Carol that they are going to sell the house, where they cut to all of us at the top of the stairs looking forlorn. Mm-hmm. Classic shot of all of us at the top of the stairs, hearing that the house is going to be sold. And I believe it's right after that, right after Mike is gone. Conveniently, we learn he's gone, and he's going to be gone all week, working these late nights, all of a sudden the sounds begin. Mm-hmm. The moaning, literal moaning, that are explained away later by Mike as just settling of a house. So Kara, when watching the show, asked me if there was something. Is this something, settling of a house? Is that really something? So I had to tell her yes, but it's normally not very noisy. It doesn't. If you have a lot of it, you have a problem. Like you're over a sinkhole. But I guess it works in a comedic sense as long as there's no sinkhole. There's another scene here that seemed a little jarring. Again, this is first season. Writers, producers, even network are all getting to know who we are. Again, writing a little bit more in the broad stroke. And there was something that comes from Alice that it was a little jarring. She says she admits about the house moving that it kind of depresses her. And that's just not something you hear from Alice, this upbeat character who's always joking about everything. And she, she plays it kind of down, like, it kind of depresses her because she's got her act together in this house, right? And is, not sure if she can function in the new house. Of course, that scares Carol, thinking that maybe Alice is going to leave if we move. Of course, Alice says no, because she's a 120-pound boomerang. She would never lose the Bradys.
And then 120 pounds?
It's not. So that's also uncharacteristic of the Carol, not uncharacteristic of maybe of Florence, because she had that sense of humor, but maybe of Carol, like looking up and down Alice and then saying 120 pounds. That's a little dig that I don't remember seeing from Carol much after the first season.
Well, we know that Mike has to be out and away because it's a big, big, big stretch to think that these things are really, really going on, that they're being created and coordinated by the kids, which is, it's just...
But think about it. Think about the context of comedy in the age that we did it. There were other father figures in television that probably would have been home, Bewitched, or, half a dozen, pick them. And there must have been talk about in the creation of this show, in this particular episode, about what to do with the Mike character once these sounds start.
Get him out of the house.
if we don't get him out of the house, then he's going to be playing this sort of
Idiot.
well, that type of father, right? The type of father who is not the one that Mike grows into being or is depicted as. And they clearly made that choice early on, that he was going to be more of your stand-up kind of, and that's what really made the show work. If he was also this comedic, foppish character, I'm not sure the Bradys work as well. It'll work on a whole different level, maybe funnier.
I don't know.
Dom DeLuise plays Mr. Brady, but
we needed an anchor
not
there.
The same thing, right? A rock.
So let me share with our listeners what the kids are up there doing. And this is where it's first revealed by the script that we are behind the noises and the howling and the creaking and the bump, the things that go bump in the night. And Greg is explaining who's doing what for whom. And Greg is on a tape recorder, and that's what he says. Okay, I'll take care of the tape recorder and unexplained noises. Peter, you, white sheets and ghostly appearances. Jan, slamming doors and windows. Marcia, on outside crashes. And Bobby and Cindy, you guys did a great job acting scared.
Report to Pete with special duties.
There you go. Report to Peter.
Spectral duties.
Yeah,
to which
spectral, right.
And even Peter says, okay, but what's spectral? Ghosts. So you sign them to me for the ghosts.
So this is a big night because the potential buyer is coming over with the real estate agent, and you're going to show her the house. And she walks in, and the first thing she mentions is the first thing we were talking about, describing houses. It has a lot of volume. It has, that big, spacious, open 2-story living room area and the staircase. But then the sounds begin.
Before we go there, before, one moment, because she's coming through that living room and she turns around, her back is to the stairs, sort of, 3/4, and she sort of gestures over to somewhere in the stairs direction, a place, and that'll be a great place for my grand piano. I'm going, I listen to that. What? There's no room. We gonna put a grand piano at the base of the stairs?
You'd have to
piano.
You'd have to move the dining room table, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah,
probably be better off on the other side of the room. You're right. Well, now we are coming to what you would call, I guess, the peak of the show and all of the excitement, because everything is on. The tape recorder is going on, and the ghosts are. In fact, I love this part. There are 2 small ghosts. like not even shoulder high that go by Alice's bedroom door, and she sees them. She lets out the biggest scream ever in the world, and she emerges from her room holding a talisman for protection, which I just love. And she's wearing those old school 50s hair rollers. She's like 15 of them in her hair. And she's like cold cream on her face. Not a lot, but a little cold cream. She's ready for bed. And the thing that's going to help her is this round talisman that she's holding out in front of her to keep the ghosts away. I love that. Oh, God. But this can only go on for so long. And Daddy comes home.
Daddy comes home and spoils the party.
Well, Daddy comes home, takes one look around, and he's got the lay of the land. Let's say that.
Immediately.
He starts hearing the sounds. He starts hearing
because he hadn't heard the sounds.
Right.
He hasn't heard the sounds. He's been poo-pooing it the whole time because he hasn't heard it. And of course, ghosts aren't real. And it's he's been on the settling of the house thing because he hasn't really heard the moaning that is being described for him.
Right.
As really being kind of a human moaning.
Much less the slamming doors and windows, which would not evoke the settling of a house.
And as soon as he hears it, you see that, he recognizes that this is kind of man-made or child-made.
Right. And I mean, he brings some decisiveness and some believability into the room. And because Alice is running around, like a chicken with her head cut off, and the buyer is there, trying to get, save me, trying to get out the front door. Carol really doesn't know what's going on. And then we see these 2 sheets.
The 2 apparitions that ran by Alice's room.
coming through the living room on their way to the stairs, and
Sheets with
Mike
feet.
Brady says, "You want to see ghosts? I'll show you ghosts." And he goes over and puts his hand on them and pulls the sheets up and over
Rips
and
the
off,
sheets
and there are Bobby and Cindy, now looking a little, tail between the legs kind of thing. And I guess the surprise is now spoiled, and the answer to the haunting of the Brady Bunch house is now exposed. But
It's immediately appreciated by Mrs. Huntsaker that this means that children don't want the house sold. That
right,
the house is no longer for sale. That was a very quick conclusion on her part, but touching nonetheless.
right, and Mrs. Hunsucker thinks that is enough that she does not want to be the buyer, because it is indeed so touching. It
worked for me that the Bradys get to this resolution without even trying, or in a deceptive sort of way. Kids just going out of their way.
So that kind of wraps that up, and then it come into the epilogue, and I love Mike Brady. Always you can always tell the lines that Robert Reed wrote. They're the ones that make like total sense, might have been overlooked, and the thing that the patriarch of a family might be concerned about. He says he's talking to Carol, and he says, "Hey, wait a minute, who put the holes in those sheets that Bobby and Cindy, right? Because sheets cost money, and now you've ruined the sheets."
And so what, Barry, you're saying is that the writer didn't write that in. It was the actor in this particular case, Bob,
I believe
making sure that he's going to...
He's covered, right?
As he's offended by his own children cutting holes in the sheets, and he can't let that go.
And
that
for a
there's
very
a
good
moment
reason.
there.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's true. Actually, I was looking at that too, wondering, when we sit down and watch these episodes, it has to have been for this episode and me 50 years ago that I saw it. So I don't remember really any of the finer points in it. And when I saw those sheets with the holes in it, I'm wondering myself, are they in it?
Exactly.
Is that going to come up? Is somebody going to bring up the fact that the kids destroyed sheets to wear them,
as a prank,
to become ghosts? I mean, next time sit down and tell your mom and dad you change your mind. You don't want to move. You'll stop yelling at each other in the bathroom, or just give me a key to unlock the bathroom door, and you really hear some screaming. So, what's the moral of our story?
Listen to your kids. I don't know. I really don't know what the moral is. It was cute enough, but I don't know if there really, there's a sentimentality to it. I think there is a Brady sentimentality. I don't know if there's really a moral to it, except don't cut holes in the sheets.
The family that haunts together stays together. You know what I think it is? It's just togetherness is hominess.
I think you're right. It has the Brady sentimentality.
And I got to tell you, I just wish I'd known this earlier, or appreciated this earlier, just how much the girls appreciated us.
Yeah. Well, at least in this episode.
They didn't want to not have a bathroom to yell over or to argue about.
I'm not sure that held up for the next 4 years. Oh, God. Well, can you imagine not having that house? We always refer to that house as the 10th character in our show. It's such an enormous part of our show and home, and what it's so distinctive.
But this is not the last time we'll haunt the house. I recall. Or did we haunt it
a Halloween
earlier
thing or something? We tried to scare Alice because we got there's a mouse involved and blinking lights in a refrigerator and different things. So yeah, we come by with this. We do that on a camping trip as well with those fake bears things, flashlight and the popsicle stick with the cutout, making it look like a bear. We do a lot of
haunting each other. We did that. We did that between scenes too.
In the UFO show as well.
Ooh. Yeah. Right. Yeah. The family that haunts together stays together. There you go.
All right.
We'll continue to haunt.
Maybe we should do something from the 4th or 5th season next, Chris, so that we our memories are fresher. This one was tough to put together.
It's tough. I'm not sure it's any better when it's the 4th season, but certainly let's shoot for the 3rd season. Let's try something in between.
All right.
It's been a lot of fun.
Okay, so I do have my little homework cut out for me. I want to hear where I say that that the girls
Go watch it again.
the girls keep their clothes in the boys' closet. That is something. All right, my friend, a lot of fun. Thank you, everybody, for eavesdropping, overhearing, walking through this with us. We hope you have sunshine days ahead. Until tomorrow, I'm Barry Williams.
And I'm Christopher Knight.
We are
The real Brady Bros.
Tired of long waits and rushed care at the ER and urgent care clinic? Next time, stay home and let Dispatch Health bring the power of the hospital to you.
I call Dispatch Health. A care team of medical professionals actually come to your house.
They're the same caliber of people that you would see if you were at a hospital or an urgent care.
Dispatch Health can treat most non-life-threatening emergencies.
They can do the x-rays, they can do stitches.
Urinary tract infections, blood test, urinalysis, ultrasound.
It's almost everything that they can do at the ER.
You never feel rushed. They're there for you and only you.
I felt like their only patient.
And it costs no more than a trip to urgent care because Dispatch Health is covered by most insurance, including Medicare. See if we serve your home at dispatchhealth.com.
Dispatch Health really went above and beyond.
It's wonderful to have care come to your home.
House calls are back, and they're better than ever. Learn more at dispatchhealth.com.
Now let's take a short break to talk about a perfect pairing of McDonald's favorites. You know that tender, juicy, crispy chicken sandwich you love so much? It's even better when paired with a frozen drink. I mean, think about it. It's hot, you're hungry, and you need the perfect pair to feel better. McDonald's crispy chicken sandwich with a frozen Fanta Blue Raspberry, frozen Coca-Cola, or frozen Fanta Wild Cherry is exactly what you need. Try them today, only at participating McDonald's.